Okay, so let's carry on with food and economy. Food in daily life. Milk from camels, goats, and cows is major food for Somali herdsmen and nomadic families. Young people tending camel herds during the rainy seasons may drink up to 10 quarters of milk a day. Aging camels may be slaughtered for their meat, especially when guests are expected for a celebration, and the fatty camel's lamp is considered a delicacy. Meat, including liver from sheep and goats, also is popular, but meat is served only a few times a month, usually on special occasions. Dura, a grain, sorghum, honey, dates, rice, tea are other food staples for nomads. Farmers in southern Somalia grow corn, beans, sorghum, millet, squash, and a few other vegetables and fruits. Boiled millet and rice are staples, but rice must be imported. The most popular bread is mufo, a flat bread made from ground corn flour. Somalis season their food with butter and ghee, the clear liquid skimmed from melted butter. They also sweeten their food with sugar, sorghum, or honey. A holdover from Italian occupation in the south is a love for pasta and marinara sauce. Although fish is plentiful in the waters of the Somali coast, Somalis generally do not like fish. In accordance with the Muslim faith, they do not eat pork or drink alcohol. Milk, tea, coffee, and water are favorite drinks. Carbonated drinks are available in cities. Among nomads and farmers, cooking is usually done over a wooden or charcoal fire outdoor in a communal cooking hut because homes are large enough only for sleeping. Grain is ground by hand using primitive tools. Restaurants are popular in cities, but women seldom dined out with men until the late 1990s. Arab cuisine is popular fare in many restaurants, Italian at others, especially in Mogadishu. International restaurants serve Chinese, European, and sometimes American food. At home, it's customary for women to serve the men first and then eat with their children after the men have finished. Rural Somalis eat by scooping food from a bowl with the first three fingers of their right hand or with a spoon. As in many other Muslim and African cultures, the left hand is considered unclean because it's used for washing the body. A rolled banana leaf may also be used for scooping. Urban Somalis may use silverware when they dine, but many still enjoy eating with their fingers. Let's look at the food customs at ceremonial occasions. Wedding, births, circumcision, and Islamic and secular holidays call for celebrations involving food. Families slaughter animals, make bread, and prepare food for guests and for the poor, who are often invited to join the celebration. The basic economy. Somalia is one of the world's poorest countries, and many gains made during the years after the independence were lost in the destruction brought about by civil war in the 1990s. However, in 2000, individuals had begun to help rebuild cities through independence businesses. Among the factors hindering economic development is lack of adequate transport. The country has no railroads, only one airline, and a few paved roads. Financial assistance from the United States helped improve Somali's major seaports and Mogadishu International Airport in the 1980s. Telecommunication systems were largely destroyed during the Civil War. However, in 1999, independent businessmen in some towns established satellite telephone systems and electricity, and Somali livestock traders and other entrepreneurs conducted much of their business by telephone. Banking networks were also established. The basic monetary unit is the Somali shilling, with 100 cents equal to 100 shilling. A large amount of the income received by Somalis comes from Somalis who have migrated to other countries to find work and send money and goods home for relatives. Land tenure and property. In pre-colonial times, land claims made by families or through bargaining among clan members. During European colonization, Italians established plantations in the riverine area and settled many poor Italian families on the land to raise crops. Since independence, much of the land has been farmed by Somalis. Somalian nomads consider pasture land available to all, but if a family digs a water well, it's considered their possession. Under Said Barre's socialist regime, there was an effort to release privately owned land to government cooperatives, but Somalis resented working land they did not own. Some land was sold in the urban areas, but grazing land continued to be shared. Okay, let's move on to commercial activities. In the colonial era, Italians developed banana, sugarcane, and citrus fruit plantations in southern Somalia. These again thrived in the late 20th century with Italian assistance. After a decade of decline due to high government taxation of exports in the 1990s, livestock and animal products make up a large portion of the goods produced in Somaliland. The country's few natural resources such as gypsum, hydrolite, quartz, uranium, iron ore, and possibly gold have not been widely exploited. Let's go to the major industries. Although Somalia is not an industrialized nation, there are some industries such as fish and meat canneries, milk processing plants, sugar refineries, leather tanning factories, and pharmaceutical and electric factories. Many of these were built with the help of foreign nations such as the former Soviet Union. Some mining and petroleum exploration has been done with the help of Middle Eastern countries. Let's look at trade and transport equipment, machinery, cement, and other building materials, and ore steel are major imports of Somalia. Most of the imports come from Italy, Ethiopia, Kenya, China, Saudi Arabia, India, Pakistan, United States, Great Britain. Livestock is the country's main export, especially camels, which are sold to Saudi Arabia and other Arabian nations. Animal hides have been exported. Bananas are the chief crop export. Coffee, cotton, peanuts, mangoes, cypress fruits, and sugarcane are other important crops. Fishing and the export of frankincense and myrrh add to the economy. Division of labor. More than half of the Somalis are self-employed as herders, farmers, and independent business owners. In the cities, some workers often hold government jobs, and in 2000, a growing percentage of workers had factory plantation or fishing industry jobs. Among rural Somalis of the sub-clan family, lower castes still provide certain types of goods and services. Let's move on to social stratification. The Somali believe in their clan family is superior to the sub. The sub-clan family developed a caste system that awards status to different groups based in their heritage or occupation. Lower class groups among the Digil and the Rahawayan, were identified by occupation. The largest group was the Midgan, which is a derogatory name, who served as barbers, circumcisers, and hunters. The Tamal were blacksmiths and metal workers. The Ibil served as fortune tellers and makers of protective amulets and charms. In the late 20th century, many from these groups found work in towns and cities and raised their status, and the old arrangements whereby they served certain clans had largely disappeared by the 1990s. A small percentage of the people of the riverine and southern coastal area are descendants of the pre-Somali people who lived in the Horn of Africa. Added to this group of descendants of Africans once enslaved by the Somalis. These cultural groups are called the Habash. While not poorly treated, Habash are considered inferior by the Somalis. Most Habash are Muslims and speak Somali, although some, such as the coastal groups Bajuni and Amarani, speak Swahili. Symbols of social stratification. Among the nomads, wealthier men were traditionally Among the nomads, wealthier men were traditionally those who owned more camels and other livestock. Warriors and priests were considered to have the most prestigious vocations. In some Rahawayan and Digil settlements, members were divided between dark skin and light skin, with those of dark skin having slightly more prestige in ceremonies, although the two are considered equal in other ways. By 2000, education, income, and the ability to speak foreign languages had become standards by which status was attained among urban Somalis. Let's look at the political life. Government. During most of the 1990s, there was no central government in Somalia. However, some of the 50 districts and 80 regional councils formed at the Addis Accords of March 1993 survived in 2000. In August 2000, Somalis met in a representative council in Djibouti and took the first steps towards establishing a government for Somalia. A 245-member assembly made up of men and women representing all clans chose a new president and wrote a transitional constitution. The assembly was to function as a transitional government for 3 years. It appointed a new Somali president, Abi Qasim Salad Hassan, a leader of the Habir Gedil subclan in the Mogadishu region. Allied with the Islamic courts and Somali business owners, Salad proposed unity, peace, and the prosperity of all Somalia. After 3 years under this transitional government, national elections were to be held. Leadership and political officials. Somalis are traditionally an independent and democratic people, but are fiercely loyal to their clan and its associated political party. Ceremonial clan members are called sultans or bukar in Somali, a term referring to binding the people together. Actual rule and enforcement of clan laws are usually fall to the elders and a council made up of clan adult males. Somali's first modern political party, the Somali Youth Club, SYC, was formed in Mogadishu in 1943 at the urging of British colonial officials, a multicultural organization that favored Somali unity. It was renamed by the Somali Youth League in 1947. Throughout the Somali modern history, it remained the strongest political party. During Said Barre's dictatorship and political parties, political parties were prohibited in Somalia, but several organized outside the country and thought to overthrow the regime. Among them was the Somali National Movement, a militant party organized by Isaac clan members living in London in alliance with the Labour United Somali Congress and the Somali Patriotic Movement. It was able to overthrow Said Barre in 1991. After ousting the dictator, however, disagreements and fighting broke out among the three parties, as well as the clans, sub-clans, and various guerrilla groups, plummeting the nation into a civil war that lasted throughout the 1990s. Let's look at the social problems and control. Under the central government formed at independence, Somali developed a Western-style judicial system with a penal code and a code of criminal court procedures, and a four-tiered court system. Islamic law, Sharia, and Somali customary law, were retained in many civil and interclan matters. The Somali police force evolved from forces organized during the colonial administration by the Italians and the British. The most common crimes committed are shootings, robbery, theft, looting, and kidnapping for ransom. Somali clans have a traditional means of compensating for lives lost in inter-clan disputes, thereby discouraging violence and encouraging peaceful settlement. The clan responsible for the death pays the victim's clan a fine called dia, traditionally a set number of camels or other livestock. A certain percentage of the dia called G4 is paid by the immediate relatives of the one responsible for the death of the immediate family of the deceased. Dia is also paid in a lesser amount for other crimes such as rape, adultery, and theft. Dia-paying groups were formed by agreement among closely related clan members. Enforcement of dia customs fall on the elders and the clan council. If a matter cannot be settled peacefully, fighting breaks out between clans, followed by another peace council. Military activity. The Somali National Army was formed at independence from military groups created under the British and Italian colonial rule. Somali was allied with the Soviet Union during the 1960s, receiving both military training and weapons from the Soviets, as well as from Egypt and other Muslim states. Before the Ogaden War of 1977 to 1978, Somali's military was one of the largest and best armored and mechanized in sub-Saharan Africa. After it lost the war, the Soviets withdrew support. However, the Somali military declined. During the early 1980s, it received training and weapons from the United States, France, Italy, Saudi Arabia. However, when the westward learned of the human rights violation under Said Berry, it withdrew military support. After Said Berry's fall, the Somali military ceased to exist. Let's look at the social welfare and change of programs. Probably the largest efforts of social welfare and change in Somalia came during the 1960s and 70s, the years after independence and the early years of Said Berry's socialist regime. Berry attempted to do away with the clan system and create a heterogeneous society. Some nomads were settled farmers, ranchers, or fishermen. Under Said Berry, the status of women improved. A written alphabet was created for Somali, and there were increased efforts in the areas of literacy and education. Let's look at the non-governmental organizations. Associations active in providing relief for the starving or the ill in Somalia during the 1980s and 1990s were International Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, the Red Cross Crescent, the United Nations, the World Food Organization, Save the Children Service, Cooperative for Assistance and Relief Everywhere, the Irish Concern, and many others. Somalis provided a large portion of the care as well. In 2000 and 2001, a dozen of United Nations agencies, among them the World Health Organizations, the UN Development, provided all types of aid to Somali. They continue to be assisted by NGOs from around the world and within Somalia. In 1994, a group of Somali women educated in Western countries returned to their homeland to help Somali women who were striving to build the economy by starting their own businesses. The group, called the Somali Women's Trust, also established girls' schools and women's health centers and helping re-establish refugees in Somalia. After Somali's women's group, Candlelight provides similar services. Let's move on to the gender roles. Division of labor. In traditional Somali clans, men and boys do the important work of attending to camels and cattle, the most valuable animals, which are the most valuable animals. Girls and boys tend to the sheep. Somali men are considered warriors, except for those few who choose the religious life. Adult men are also expected to serve in their clan family council. Urban men work as businessmen, blacksmiths, craftsmen, fishermen, and factory workers. Women in nomadic clans are responsible for caring for children, cooking, and moving the family aqua. Women and girls in farming clans are responsible for planting and harvesting crops, caring for children, cooking. Urban women may hold jobs in shops, offices, or may run their own business. The relationship between men and women. Somali women are expected to submit to the men and to fulfill duties as daughters, wives, and mothers. Although they do not wear the Muslim veil, they generally do not socialize with men in public places. Somali women living in cities, especially those educated in other countries, dress and behave more like Western women. Given the right to vote in newly elected independent Somalia, women begin to take an active role in politics and serve in government committees and the People's Assembly. They served in military units and played sports. Opportunities for secondary and higher education had increased for women before the collapse of the government in 1991. With many Somali men killed during the civil war or lost to disease such as tuberculosis, women have learned to fend for themselves. They have shown remarkable adaptability and a talent for business. The United Nations and other international organizations launched campaigns in the late 1990s to help Somali women and girls get better health care and education, job skill training. Somali natives who have been educated abroad are returning to help those with these endeavors. Several programs have been started to promote nomadic women's enterprise, such as collecting of henna leaves or grinding into natural cosmetics. Women in urban areas sell wares in the streets or marketplace, or run their own shops. In spite of the condemnation of the United Nations and by modern Muslim leaders, nearly all Somali girls are forced to undergo the dangerous and misfiguring circumcision rite known to the United Nations as female genital mutilation. Somalis also has one of Africa's highest maternity mortality rate. Approximately 16 mothers die for every 1,000 live births. Widespread efforts to correct unsafe practices in reproductive health care are expected to improve these conditions in the 21st century. Let's look at marriage. Somalis marriages have traditionally been considered a bond between not just man and woman, but also clan members and families. Until very recently, most Somali marriages were arranged, usually between the older man with some wealth and the father of a young woman he wished to wed. The customs still hold in many rural areas in the 21st century. The man pays a bride price, usually livestock or money, to the woman's family. Somali traditionally marry outside their family lineage, all within the lineage separated from the man by 6 or more generations. Sab follow Arab tradition of marrying within their father's family lineage, with first cousins often marrying. A Somali bride often lives with her husband's family after marriage, with their own parents providing the home and household goods. She keeps her family name, however. Weddings are joyous occasions, but the couple often sign up an agreement giving the bride a certain amount of property should the couple divorce, which is common in Somalia. The husband holds the property in trust for her. Tradition calls for the wife to relinquish her right of the property if she initiates divorce. Islamic law permits a man to have up to 4 wives if he can provide for them and their children with equal support. If the man repents 3 times to his wife, "I divorce you," the couple is considered divorced. The wife is given a 3-month grace period, however, in case she should be pregnant. Today, many urban Somalis choose a mate based on love and common interests rather than accepting an arranged marriage. The domestic unit. The Somali domestic unit consists of a man, his wives, and their children. Elderly or unmarried relatives may live with the family in homes with more than one wife. Each wife lives with her child in her house, and the husband and father divides his time among them. In case of divorce, children usually remain with their mother. The male is considered the head of the household, except when it's headed by a divorced or widowed woman. Inheritance passes from father to son in Somalis families. A wife remains part of the father's lineage, while her children belong to her husband's lineage. Under Islamic law, daughters are entitled to inherit half of what the sons get. But in Somali societies, daughters usually did not receive valuable animal or land. Under Said Berry's regime, social reforms included equal inheritance rights for women, although this was opposed by some Islamic leaders. Kin groups. Somali society is based on a clan family structure. The two major clan heads are the Samal or Samale and the Sab or Sab, named for two brothers who are said to have been members of the Prophet Muhammad's tribe, the Quraysh of Arabia. Please forgive my pronunciation. Many Somalis believe that their ancestor from the Old Testament time was Noah's son Ham. The Somal, which make up about 3/4 of the Somali population, are divided into four major main clan families: the Dil, the Darud, Isaac, and Hawiye. The Sab are divided into the Digil and the Rahawayan clan families. Major clans can have thousands of members, each claiming descent from a common ancestor. These clans are subdivided into sub-clans and into primary lineage groups. Somali men trace their membership in a particular clan family through their patrilineage, going back to a dozen or more generations. Clan groups with the longest ancestry have the most prestige. Clan and sub-clans are associated with the territory they occupy for most of the year. Socialization. Somali children are raised with much love, but are also disciplined and taught to work from age 5-6 with little time for play. In spite of numerous hardships, Somali children are known for their sense of joy and abundant laughter. Children are taught independence and self-reliance and to carefully observe the world around them. Boys and girls are circumcised during a ceremony and celebration. Boys and girls are kept separated according to Islamic law. Traditionally, do not date, although a group of teenage males do a courtship dance for girls of marriageable age. Because of the high incidence of divorce, many children grow up with one parent, usually the mother, although the boys may stay with their father and his wives. Multiple wives make for family groups with many children. Education of Somali children is in all but the wealthiest urban areas are practically non-existent, except for training in reading the Quran. Before the early 1970s, boys in the rural areas attended outdoor schools where they learned Arabic using wooden slats. Before independence, some attended Roman Catholic schools where they learned Arabic or Italian. Under Said Berry, a Latin-based alphabet was created for the Somali language, which previously had no written form. The leader undertook a massive literacy campaign in Somalia and achieved some success, although many nomadic children still did not attend school and many, especially girls, dropped out after 4 years of primary school. Parents learned reading and writing and arithmetic as well as Arabic, animal husbandry and agriculture. A lack of trained teachers, materials and schools, however, made secondary school classes inadequate, and about 10% of the students went to secondary school. When civil war broke out, most secular education stopped as schools were bombed and the government, which had hired teachers, collapsed. However, some dedicated teachers struggled on during the 1990s, often without pay. Students continued to come, eager to learn, and even when they had no chairs or desks and no roof on the school. In the absence of government, parents contributed what they could towards supplies so the children could continue to get an education. Higher education. Somali National Assembly in Mogadishu, founded in 1970, was the nation's principal university before the Civil War. Courses were offered in education, sciences, law, medicine, engineering, geology, economics, agriculture, veterinary science. The National Adult Education Center was established in the late 1970s to combat a relapse in literacy among adult nomadic population. In 1981, the Nomad Education Program was created by the Berry government, which established boarding schools in 10 regions and selected students from various clan members to attend school for 60 days. Students are ranged in age from 14 to 50, but most were in their 20s. After completing the course, they went home and taught what they had learned to other family members of the clan. The most relevant courses of the nomadic students were related to geography and the environment. Other valuable classes were also in personal hygiene, nutrition, first aid, midwifery for female students. The nomadic education program, like so many others, died during the Civil War. Somali National University was largely destroyed in the fighting in Mogadishu. University professors and Somali intellectuals began working in the 1993 to establish a private university in Mogadishu. The new Mogadishu University was finally opened in September 1997. It offered programs in Sharia and law, education, arts, business, and economics, the computer science. Somaliland also opened a private university, Amdu University, in 1997. It's largely supported by international funding and by Somalis living in the United Arab Emirates. Let's look at the etiquette. In the Somali language, Somal, a common greeting of welcome, refers to the act of milking. Offering a guest the opportunity to milk an animal and get himself something to drink. Somalis offer a milky tea and burn essence to welcome visitors. Somalis greet one another by saying Mali Wanagasan, or meaning good day, or Nobad Maya, how are you? Please bear with my pronunciation. Men of the same clan family then share a long handshake. Women greet one another informally and may hug and kiss one another on the cheek. Members of unrelated clan families do not shake hands, exchange intimacies. Somalis also use certain Arab hand gestures to communicate. I'm going to move on to religion. Religion is a major influence of Somalis. They are Sunni Muslims of the Shafi'ite rite, with great interest in Sufi spiritualism, characterized by chanting, whirling, and chewing cat or narcotic leaf, and falling into trance as a way of communing with Allah. They also include the veneration of Somali saints in various worship. Added to the daily practice, Islam is a belief in mortal spirits called jinn. Said to be added to the daily practice of Islam is a belief in mortal spirits called jinn, said to be descended from the fallen heavenly spirit. According to folk beliefs, jinn can cause misfortune and illness and can harm humans. Somalis believe the poor, weak, and injured have some special spiritual powers given by Allah. So Somalis are always kind to the less fortunate in hopes that they will not use the power for evil against them. Religious practices. Unlike other Muslims, Somalis believe that both their religious and secular leaders have the power to bless and curse people. The power believed to be given by Allah is called barak. Barak is given to linger at the tombs of Somali saints and to help cure illnesses and resolve problems upon a visit to the tomb. Islamic teachers and mosque officials make up a large portion of the religious practitioners. Islam has no priests. Some Somali followers of Sufism, given the name dervishes, dedicate themselves to a life of religious by preaching Islam and giving up all possessions. The Sufi are also known for their farming communities and religious centers they've established in southern Somalia called Jamaat. Among nomads, a respect male leader or religious devotee might be appointed wadad. His duties are to lead prayer and to perform ritual sacrifices on the religious holidays and special occasions. He also learns folkware astronomy, which is used in healing, divination, and to determine times for migration. Other religious practices include the Yibir clan of the Sab. Yibir practices are called on to exorcise exos, to exos, exorcise spirits and to restore health, good fortune, or prosperity to individuals through prayers, ceremonies, including animal sacrifice. Rituals and holy places. Mosques can be in Somali cities and towns. Nomads worship whenever they are, with men or women praying and studying the Quran separately in accordance with Islamic law. Somalis, in accordance with Islam, Somalis are to pray 5 times a day facing Mecca. They also recite the creed of Islam and observe zakat, or giving to the poor, if able. They should make a pilgrim to Mecca at least once, and they should observe the fast of Ramadan. Tombs of the Somali holy men or sheikhs venerated as saints have become national shrines. Pilgrim visits to the saint's annual feast day, usually in the month of his birth, when his power is believed to be at its strongest. Religious holidays include Islamic holidays of Ramadan, month of fasting, Eid al-Fitr, the Little Feast, and the fast of the Maharan, when an angel is said to shake the tree of life and death. Excuse me. Maulid an-Nabi, the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, and Eid al-Adha, commemorating the story of Abraham and his son Ismail. Please bear with my pronunciation. Islamic holidays fall on different times of the year according to the Islamic calendar. Holidays are celebrated with feasting and storytelling, visiting graves, giving to the poor, parades, plays, and ceremonies. Excuse me. Okay, so let's move on to death and afterlife. Somalis hold the Muslim view that each person will be judged by Allah in the afterlife. They also believe a tree representing all Muslims grows at the boundary between earth and heaven. Some believe in the boundary is on the moon. Each person is represented by a leaf on the tree. When an angel shakes the tree on the day of the new year, the Islamic month of Maharan, it is said that those leaves fall off will die within the coming year. Muslims also believe that a person who dies while fasting during Ramadan is especially blessed by Allah. When a Somali dies, feasting and celebration are held as they are at birth. A Somali wife must mourn her husband's death in seclusion at home for 4 months and 10 days according to the Islamic practice. Now, we're going to move on to medicine and health. Before the civil war in the 1990s, Somali's Ministry of Health regulated all medical practices and personnel, but the breakdown of the government and the destruction of most hospitals and clinics, Somali's health care was declined. There were few doctors and hospitals, and many unqualified persons practice a form of medicine at private facilities, especially in Mogadishu and other cities. The absence of regulation carries over to prescription drugs, which are often improperly dispensed by pharmacies. The World Health Organization and the United Nations Fund, along with the international and Somali non-government organizations, provide much of the healthcare and health information services in Somalia. Most healthcare is free, but hospitals charge patients a fee to help recover costs. Tuberculosis and malaria are the two major causes of illness and death in the nation. Somalia had one of the world's highest tuberculosis rates in the 2000s, but it also had one of the highest cure rates thanks to the UN and other international organizations and their Somali health workers. In 2000, these organizations launched an aggressive program to fight malaria. They also conducted ongoing polio measures and tetanus vaccination campaigns. Cholera and other gastrointestinal diseases had become epidemic in Mogadishu and other areas by 2000, largely because of the piles of rubbish and poor sanitation conditions resulting from the civil war. Malnutrition and starvation tetanus, leprosy, venereal disease, skin, eye infections claim life and limb unnecessary. Somalia is estimated to have a low prevalence of HIV and AIDS compared to other African nations. In the late 1999, studies showed that 8 to 9% of the subjects were HIV positive. Health workers are being trained in the prevention and management of sexually transmittable diseases. Somali folk medicine is often practiced by nomads and farmers who have no immediate access to the medical care. Somalis believe that some kinds of illnesses are caused by possession of the body by spirits, which can be exorcised through ritual. Excuse me. Okay, so let's move on to secular celebrations. Somalis celebrate Independence Day on the 26th of June, the day in 1960 when British Somaliland gained its independence. They celebrate the foundation of the republic on July the 1st. At the beginning of August, they hold a circular New Year celebration called Dabshid, fire lighting, when they strike a stick and jump over the fire. Let's look at the art and humanities. Somali has been long known for their national poets. People with few possessions or no written language until the 1970s, Somali developed an oral tradition of poetry and storytelling that has been passed down through generations. Many of these poems and storytelling were written down in the late 20th century. A popular new genre of song on the radio in the late 20th century was Hello from the Somali poetry. Some themes of Somali poetry are history, philosophy, and clan politics, as well as praise of ridicule of humans or animals. Probably the best-known Somali poet is spiritual and military leader Ahmed Abdal Hassan, leader of the Muslim dervishes. Now let's move to Islamic poetry, which is also a Somali tradition. Many poets were great religious leaders and now considered saints. Somali and Islamic poetry is written in Arabic, often in the form of prayer. Although the Somali poets have been writing since at least the 12th century, the most well-known Somali poets of recent times are Selisi, Sheikh Sufi, and Sheikh Uwais Marxist from 1869 to 1905. Somali Islamic prose written in Arab are maqaba. Writers record the deeds and virtues of Somali sheikhs, religious leaders, some with miraculous powers. Somalis also read Islamic religious classes. Modern Somali novelist Nuruddin Farah has been internationally recognized, famous for his novels about African women's issues and the struggle of human rights in post-colonial Africa. His novels include From a Crooked Rib in 1970 and Gifts. He was awarded the Nostadot International Prize for Literature in 1998. Let's look at the performing arts. Somali plays were performed in the late 20th century in the National Theatre of Mogadishu, a small theatre, and at small theatres in other cities. Somalis began to write plays under the influence of British and Italian colonists. Somali plays are often written in Somali, Arabic, English, Italian. A well-known modern Somali playlist is Hassan Mumin, A Leopard Among the Women, 1974, and Contest de Djibouti in 1990. Let's look at the state of physical and social sciences. Astronomy has been a popular career for Somalis. Astronomer Musa H. Gali wrote the Terminology and Practice of Somali Weather Law, Astronomy and Astrology, 1968. Science and engineering students who might have studied in Somalia, if not for civil war, have migrated to other countries to study, where they have successful careers in medicine and the physical and social sciences. Some have returned to Somalia to help with their people. In the late 20th century, telecommunications and computer science became popular areas of study and enterprise for Somalis as they thought to rebuild their war-torn country and keep peace with the new technology. In 2000, Somali had one of Africa's most well-developed telecommunication system as well as internet service for its expanding computer networks. All right, folks, so I want to say thank you so much. If you've made it this far, we've come to the end of our series, to our episode with regards to Somalia. I want to thank you so much. This was read to you by yours truly, Christine, courtesy of Exhibit Africa Ubuntu Initiative, compiled by everyculture.com. Please don't miss our next series as we move on to another beautiful country on the continent of Africa. And please don't forget to follow or subscribe for more videos. Ciao for now.